Hello viewers, welcome to the another session of Postgraduate Diploma of Environmental and Occupational Health. Today we are going to discuss about some of the common pollution factors, that is air pollution. So everybody knows about the air pollution, how the air pollution, what are the sources, and then how it will damage our health. So today we are going to discuss a detail about the air pollution factors. So according to the World Health Organization, air pollution is the contamination of the indoor or the outdoor air by a range of gases and also solid particles that modify its natural characteristics. For example, most important factor in the air pollution is the particulate matter, that normally we can call it as PM. So there are also ranges, that is PM 2.5 and also PM 10, and carbon monoxide, ozone and black carbon, sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides. These are some of the examples of the air pollutants. There are two types of air pollutants if we can think about it. The first one is primary air pollutants and the secondary air pollutants, and the second category is natural and anthropogenic pollutants. If we will look into the primary air pollutants, these are the pollutants which are released directly into the atmosphere from a particular source of pollution. Most examples are this carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. If you look in the methane, nitric oxide and nitrous oxide, ammonia, and then hydrogen sulfide and sulfur dioxide, chlorides, fluorides, bromides, and particulate matter, aerosols. All these are the examples of the primary air pollutants. If you will see the secondary air pollutants, these are the primary air pollutants itself that can be transformed by the light or energy or heat or the presence of other chemicals into toxic compounds. So these are the converted air pollutants of the primary pollutants. These are normally we can call it as secondary pollutants. Some examples are ozone. Ozone is a secondary pollutant which is formed by the photolysis reaction of the oxides of nitrogen, which is followed by the subsequent reactions with the volatile organic compounds, nitrogen oxide and also nitric acid, which is formed from the nitric oxide, and then sulfuric acid, which is also consequently formed from the sulfur dioxide, and also the nitric acid, which is formed from the nitrogen dioxide. So first we have to understand the atmospheric effects. So what are atmospheric effects? So whenever energy from the sun that reaches the earth, the planet absorbs some of the energy from the sun and that radiates the rest back to the space as heat. So the earth's surface temperature that depends upon this balance between the incoming from the sun. So the average conditions that tend to remain stable unless the earth experiences a force that shifts from the energy balance. So a shift in the energy balance that causes the earth's average temperature to become warmer or cooler, that leads to a variety of other changes in the lower atmosphere. And also not only on the lower atmosphere, on the land as well as in the oceans. A variety of physical and chemical changes that can affect the global energy balance and also the force that changes in the earth's climate. So some of these changes may be natural and also some others are influenced by the humans, that is anthropogenic. So these changes are measured by the amount of warming as well as the cooling that can produce. So this normal thing, that is the entire process known as the radiative forcing. So the changes that have a warming effects are called the positive forcing, and the changes that have a cooling effect are called the negative forcing. So when positive and negative forces which are out of balance sometimes, so the result is a climate change in the earth's average surface temperature. So according to the World Health Organization, 10 out of 20 most populated cities in the world are in India. So it is very alarming situation. So based on the concentrations of the amount of, that is a PM 2.5 particulate matter emissions, India was ranked the 5th most polluted country by the World Health Organization in 2019, in which 21 among the top 30 polluted cities which are located in India. So the Indian cities which exceeds the World Health Organization threshold by an alarming 500%. So now you can understand the seriousness about the air pollution. So some of the common air pollutants, we will look into that. Today the pollution levels in many areas of India and across the globe that exceed national air quality standards for at least one of the 6 common air pollutants, like particulate matter and photochemical oxidants like ozone, NOx, SOx, lead as well as the carbon monoxide. If we will see the particulate matter, that stands for the PM, normally we can call it as, and also sometimes we can call it as particulate pollution. So this term what we are using for the particulate matter for a mixture of solid particles and liquid droplets which are found in the air. Some particles like dust, dirt, soot or sometimes smoke, they are large or dark enough to be seen with the naked eye. Some other pollutants are so small they can only be detected using an electron microscope. If we will see the particulate matter 10, these are the inhalable particles with diameters that are generally 10 micrometers and also smaller. And PM 2.5, that is fine inhalable particles with diameters, that is the size I am telling, that are generally 2.5 micrometers and also less than that. And PM1 is also there, that is the particles less than 1 μm in size. So what are the examples for these particulate matter? They are mostly dust, combustion particles, bacteria and also viruses. How small is 2.5 micrometers? Think about a single hair from our head. So the average human hair is about 70 micrometers in diameter, making it 30 times larger than the largest fine particle. So these particles come in many sizes and also shapes, and they can be made up of hundreds of different chemicals. So some are emitted directly from a source, and that is a construction sites or unpaved roads or fields, or sometimes it may be from the smokestacks or the fires. So most particles form in the atmosphere as a result of complex reactions of chemicals like sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides, which are pollutants that are emitted from the power plants and industries and automobiles. So the size of particles, they are directly linked to their potential for causing health problems. Small particles which are less than 10 micrometers in diameter, they can definitely pose the greatest problems because they can get deep into our lungs, and some may even get into our bloodstream. So our lungs are definitely, we can say that, prey to the PM1. So when inhaled, these PM1 particles, they travel into the deepest areas of our lungs, where a significant part of them passes through the cell membranes of the alveoli, that is the millions of tiny sacs in our lungs where oxygen and carbon dioxides are exchanged, and then enters into the bloodstream that damage the inner walls of the arteries and also penetrate into the tissues in the cardiovascular system and potentially spread to the organisms. At worst case, PM1 can contribute to deadly diseases like heart attacks, lung cancer and also the dementia and emphysema, edema and other serious diseases that leads to the premature death. Exposure to these particles that can affect both our lungs as well as heart. So there are number of scientific studies, they have linked particulate pollution exposure to a variety of problems. Some examples I would like to emphasize that premature death in people with heart attack as well as the lung disease, and also the non-fatal sometimes heart attacks, and irregular heartbeat, and aggravated asthma, and decreased lung function, and also the increased respiratory symptoms like an irritation of the airways and coughing or difficulty in breathing. And some people with heart or lung diseases and children also and older adults, they are the most likely to be affected by the particle pollution exposure because they are vulnerable towards this pollution. So, now we will study about the environmental effects. So, the terrestrial ecosystem, we know, we have seen that widely affected by the ground air pollution. So, the effects on the marine ecosystem like acidification of lakes and eutrophication and also mercury accumulation in aquatic food. Similarly, soil acidification is also another phenomena that is common in forest ecosystems as a result of long-term pollutant accumulation. So, soil pollution here it is indirectly affects the ecosystem of plants and animals which are mainly reliant on soil for nutritional intake, and nitrogen deposition in wet and dry forms on vegetation, and also the soil surfaces that can occur from the vehicular and agricultural activities. And nitrogen deposition on plant is also a serious outcome of the air pollution. So, several damages like increased defoliation and discoloration of the leaves and poorer crown condition as well as the increased pest attacks, these are also observed. So, another air pollutant, that is the ozone, that is toxic to both plants and animals. So, we know that ozone that results in the reduced photosynthesis, of course, and also slower growth in plants. Moreover, the reproductive performance of animals, they are also get affected due to the increased oxidative stress. And sulfur oxides and nitrogen oxides, they can also harm the flora and fauna, and not only flora and fauna, material surfaces and even damage the buildings as well as the structures. So, the negative effects that may be in the form of discoloration and loss of materials, structural falling or the failing, and also the soiling. So, this can reduce the service life of buildings and can also severely damage the historical monuments and structures. One such example is Indian white marble Taj Mahal. So, we proudly says about Taj Mahal, which is turning yellow because it is being continuously exposed to the sulfur oxide emissions from industries and also the acid rain. Another historical monument in India, that is a Hyderabad's Charminar, that is also turning black because it is being situated in a highly polluted area. The erosion of such heritage zones that poses a grave concern. And another important factor is the industrialization. So, over the last few decades, India has witnessed a large scale of industrialization. This has degraded the air quality in most urban cities. The Central Pollution Control Board, that is CPCB, that has categorized the polluting industries into 17 categories. So, some are small and medium scale. Out of these categories, 7 have been marked as critical industries like iron and steel, sugar, paper, cement, fertilizer, copper and aluminum industries. So, the major pollutants that comprises from these industries are SPM and sulfur oxides, nitrogen oxides and carbon dioxide emissions. If we will see these small scale industries, they are not regulated like the major industries. They can use several energy sources apart from the primary sources of state, that is provided electricity. So, some of these fuels includes that use of biomass, use of plastic and also the crude oil. So, these energy sources which are neglected in the current emission inventory studies. The most important effect of these air pollution is the photochemical smog. That is the secondary pollutants that form in the presence of sunlight as a result of chemical reactions in the atmosphere is normally called as the photochemical smog. So, normally this photochemical smog that appears in the urban areas, because there is a heavy buildup of the vehicle exhaust. So, when primary pollutants like nitrogen oxides and hydrocarbons, which are trapped in the lower atmosphere and are subjected to the ultraviolet radiation from the sun, this photochemical smog forms. So, these ingredients produce the pollutants that characterize photochemical smog. So, these products, they are termed gross photochemical oxidants and are also defined by their ability to oxidize iodide ion to the chemical iodine. So, some ozone and then hydrogen peroxide, organic peroxides and organic hydroperoxides, and also by far the most serious to the health and also most important, that is a peroxyacetyl or peroxyacyl nitrates, normally we can call it as PAN. So, the other effect normally we can call them, and then we all are aware, is the acid rain. What exactly the acid rain? Acid rain or acid deposition is nothing but a broad term that includes any form of the precipitation which is acidic components like sulfuric or the nitric acid that fall to the ground from the atmosphere in wet or dry forms. So, this may be the wet deposition or the dry deposition that may in the form of rain, or it may in the form of snow, fog, hailstorm, or otherwise even dust that is acidic in nature. So, now what causes the acid rain? So, we are thinking a lot about the acid rain. So, if you will look into the picture that shows that the pathways for acid rain in our environment. First, we have to see the emissions of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides which are released into the air, where the pollutants are transformed into the acid particles that may be transported from the longer distances because of the wind. And these acid particles then fall to the earth as wet and dry deposition, maybe dust or it may be rain or snow like that. And that may cause harmful effects on soil, forests as well as the streams and also on lakes. So, the acid rain that results when sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides which are emitted into the atmosphere and also transported by wind and air currents. So, the sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide reacts with water, oxygen and other chemicals to form sulfuric and nitric acids. Then these are mixed with the water and other materials before falling into the ground. So, while a small portion of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide that cause acid rain is from natural sources like volcanic eruptions, and most of it comes from the burning of fossil fuels. So, the major sources of sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides in the atmosphere are the burning of fossil fuels to generate electricity. So, 2/3 of sulfur dioxide and 1/4 of nitrogen oxides in the atmosphere that comes from the electric power generators, vehicles and also the heavy equipment, manufacturing, oil refineries and also some other industries are the sources of these emissions. And wind can blow the sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides over long distances, and also sometimes it may be the transboundary in nature and across boundaries, making acid rain problem for everyone and not just those who live, that is a close proximity to these sources. So, there are two types of acid depositions, what we have seen earlier, that is a wet and dry depositions. Wet deposition is when we most commonly think of the acid rain. So, the sulfuric and nitric acids which are formed in the atmosphere fall to the ground mixed with rain, snow, fog or hail. If you will see the dry deposition, that is the acidic particles and also gases sometimes can also deposit from the atmosphere in the absence of moisture as the dry deposition. So, the acidic particles and also gases, they may deposit to the surfaces like water bodies, sometimes vegetation, buildings. It may react during the atmospheric transport to form the larger particles that can be harmful to the human health. When the accumulated acids, they are washed off a surface by the obviously the next spell of rain, this acidic water flows over as well as through the ground and can harm the plants and wildlife like insects and fish. So now we will see the effects of air pollution on human health. If we will look into the diagram, so in general or the specific sections of the public are most affected by air pollution. So pollutants generally acts on the surface of the respiratory system that can cause the chronic respiratory and cardiovascular disease. They may also alter the important body functions like oxygen exchange in the lungs or oxygen transport in the blood. So, irritant pollutants, they may lead to irritation and also the long term damage to the eyes, nose, throat and other wet surfaces of the body. So, deposition of the particulate matter in the alveoli of lung is quite serious as removal can be very slow, and the soluble particles will be transferred to the blood. So, one of the most important particles that may encounter in the atmosphere is the sulfuric acid that irritates the mucous membrane and also leads to the bronchial constrictions, that is the asthmatics as well as and smokers, and also far more likely to be affected by these people and who are healthy. And most of the gaseous air pollutants that affects are more acute than the chronic. So, sulfur dioxide, ozone and also nitrogen oxides are all pulmonary irritants normally we can categorize and lead to congestion and also edema, and even sometimes it is a hemorrhage. So, nitric oxide and hydrogen sulfide and carbon monoxide are the asphyxiant gases. So, these combine with the hemoglobin molecules to prevent oxygen transfer around the body. So, these molecules bind far more successfully to the hemoglobin than does oxygen. So, many of the organic gas pollutants like this acrolein, that is 1-propanol, as well as these gaseous pollutants they can also produce eye irritation. So, other chronic diseases which are related to the air pollution are sometimes it is a lung cancer and also the chronic bronchitis as well as the asthma. In addition to this air pollution that can have serious effects on the acute diseases like the common cold. So, air pollutants, they are significantly affect many non-biological structures as well as the materials. So, these affects causes the economic losses in billions of dollars each year. Most important are the effects on metals and carbonate building stones and paints and textiles, fabric dyes, rubber, leather and also paper. So, in Western Europe, which is a repository for many monuments of history and fine works of art, that is a air pollutant induced damage has been, it is highly incalculable. So, because these cultural treasures are irreparable, their preservation and then from the destructive effects of the airborne contaminants, which poses a significant challenges to the scientist. So these many things are there. So, are there any mitigation strategies? So, especially in our country, the central and state governments have taken several steps to control air pollution and improve the ambient air quality, and various initiatives like use of compressed natural gas especially to mitigate the vehicular emission, and also it is an CNG is an alternative fuel, and also odd even measures sometimes it is implemented in Delhi, and the introduction of the Bharat Stage 6 vehicle and fuel standards, and Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana and the National Clean Air Program. These are some of the examples for this endeavor. So, the CPCB ensures the monitoring and regulation of the National Ambient Air Quality Standards in the cities, towns and also the industrial areas with the cooperation of the respective state pollution control boards, that is the SPCBs. So, under these various plans and then sector wise measures have been implemented in the urban cities of India. For the transport sector particularly, for instance, some of these measures like the use of electric vehicles as a mode of public transportation and development of cycling infrastructure and the use of bioethanol as fuels and the construction of multi-level car parking facilities and also the some peripherals to the tackle this congestion. So, within the industrial sector, some of the measures which undertaken like the implementation of zigzag technology for the stock emissions from the brick kilns and online monitoring of the discharges through the online continuous emission monitoring systems, that is a OCEMS, and the installation of web cameras in highly polluting industries. To tackle the problem of open burning of garbage and also the household waste, door-to-door collection of the segregated waste that has been introduced and several compost pits that have been established in urban cities. So, in the residential sector, the government has set a target of achieving 100% usage of LPG for cooking purposes. In addition to these, to control the concentrations of the particulate matter and also the dust particles, there are so many steps they have taken up, that is a green buffer that is around cities, that maintenance of the 33% of green cover around the urban areas, and also the installation of water fountains across the cities that have been taken over the years. And also the Bharat stage emission standards are introduced by the Government of India to regulate air pollutants coming out of vehicles as a result of combustion engines and also the spark ignition engines. So, these standards are set by the Central Pollution Control Board under the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. Dear learner, so you must have understood how the anthropogenic activities cause a severe damage to the human beings, not only human beings, with our biotic environment. So, we have a most important crucial role to play to mitigate the measures by executing all these mitigation measures which are provided by the government. I hope you must have understood, and we will see you in the next session. Thank you.